Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and a doctoral student of psychology. Today, I want to talk about why an avoidant might be ignoring you, or they're potentially distancing themselves or detaching from you, but likely they're ignoring some portion of whatever you're communicating. So it might be they ignore half of your text messages and respond very briefly or very dry, or it might be that they are ignoring you completely, something of that nature. And usually it's a combination of these things, but it could be just one or two, but normally it is at least one of these things. The first one is that they have actually been recently triggered by you. Typically, it's going to be by you, and they need space. So it's not that you have done it on purpose, okay? And this is the part that it comes up a lot when we have calls. I won't use an example of any of the things that you guys have shared in consulting calls. So I'm going to just make up an example here. But let's say, for example, you said something about how you need to buy something for work. Maybe you're saying you need to elevate your wardrobe, something pretty basic, and they might be triggered and they might think, oh, maybe you're a type of person who spends a lot of money. Maybe if we ever get married, you're going to spend all of the money that I've made. Maybe that's the trigger that they feel, even though you didn't say that, but they got triggered and you didn't realize they got triggered because maybe they didn't show it emotionally or they reacted very minimally and you weren't able to clock that basically. But then you realized over time, because maybe they started saying like small comments, maybe they were saying like more snarky comments about that particular thing. And then you might start thinking, okay, did that bother them or not? I thought that wasn't a big deal. And now at this point, they're already very triggered. And so they start shutting down even further, to which now they need space. Normally with this one, they will return, but they need space and sometimes they need prompting. And so an example of this that we have discussed on some of our phone calls is saying something along the lines of, let's say, following up a couple weeks later, a couple days later, you might say, hey, how are you? And if they do respond, even though it's a little dry, this is an opportunity that you can ramp it up a little bit. You can invite them to hang out. Maybe you can say, hey, I'm going to A, B, and C. Do you want to come with me? And it doesn't even have to be a personal or romantic thing. It could be, I'm going to do this and I thought maybe you would like it. Do you want to join me? Something that's a little bit casual while still allowing them to break that barrier of that discomfort and trigger. And if that doesn't work, give them additional space and then you can try again. That's a good way to do that, okay? The next one is that they need space to deal with personal issues or stress. I have mentioned this before because it is one of the more challenging ones to really resolve because it's external. It has nothing to do with you or actually has nothing to do with them either. It could be like a job loss. It could be a death in the family. And so these types of things that occur, it happens because a lot of times they cannot handle too many emotions at once. And so therefore, what we tend to see is that they shut down or cut off more emotionally taxing, not taxing, but overwhelming aspects of their life. And when you love someone or care about someone, that is a lot of emotions. And so you are going to be one of the first things that they cut off because they only have such a small bandwidth and they can't control the other one. And so they can control you. And because you are a large amount of where their emotions go to, you're going to be the first one they cut off. But they will likely return with this one as well, okay? The next one is they're unsure about their feelings and they're avoiding that conversation. And so being unsure about your feelings is something that can happen with any attachment style. And it actually is a normal process that happens in relationships, but avoidance can be very specific or very uncomfortable about feeling this way. And so they might make it a bigger deal than it actually is. And so they might not actually be as unsure as they make it out to be. If I'm being completely honest with you, like if I'm being as direct as possible, I want to be as clear as possible that being unsure about your feelings can happen, but it might be like this big and they make it much larger because they are just so uncomfortable with feeling unsure, and it makes them feel like this is evidence that they shouldn't be with you because they have a lot of those doubts, especially if it's a fearful avoidant. If it's a fearful avoidant, a lot of times they think, okay, do these feelings of uncertainty that I have mean that they also have uncertain feelings? Does this mean that if we do get into a relationship that I'll be abandoned at one point? Fearful avoidants have that thought. Dismissive avoidants more likely will think, okay, if I'm uncertain, does it mean that I will fail? If I choose this relationship, will it fail? Will that prove that I am a failure? I picked the wrong person. And so these are some of the things that they might start feeling and they're avoiding that conversation. And if you can relate to any of these points, including the ones that I will talk about later, you can book a call with me. That is pinned in the comments. The next one is actually that they're upset about something that happened between you guys that was brought up again. So this is not a recent trigger. This is something that maybe they've been bottling up for a while, and maybe something reminded them of this. So maybe before you were really upset about, I don't know, something that they did, whatever it is, or they were upset about something you did and they kind of avoided it. You guys didn't really talk about it much. And then it somehow indirectly got brought up. Maybe it wasn't even you. Maybe something on TV reminded you guys of that and you had like a very brief conversation about it. Again, they don't act like there was something that bothered them about it. And so you may have not caught it right away. But at one point you started to realize maybe that is what was bothering them. But it's so quick for you to understand because they don't show much of their emotions. You probably didn't notice it right away. So you weren't able to comfort them or let them know it's not something that needs to be worried about, or you're not like that anymore. You've changed, or whatever the issue is. But because you were not able to reassure them, because their emotions were so, they weren't in the forefront, unfortunately, this festered and it made them think about that continuously and paint you in a negative light temporarily, though. Again, a lot of these are truly that once space has been introduced or prompting or a combination, they usually feel better. With this one, you can have a conversation about it. If they're not willing to, give them a little bit of space and then maybe reintroduce other things that are more positive, okay? Like not about this topic, and then maybe bring it up at some other point if you want to. Otherwise, if it's not that big of a deal to you and you feel like over time it will be okay, leave it that way and just talk about other things. The next one is that they feel hurt, rejected, or misunderstood. A lot of times, a lot of these triggers, this is what is a result of it. And so if they feel rejected, hurt, or misunderstood, a lot of times they're not going to want to tell you that that's how they feel, because for a fearful avoidant, they might feel like this is an opportunity for you to reject them or maybe leave them or abandon them. For a dismissive avoidant, this will make them feel like they're not enough because they can't manage their own emotions, and you can see these feelings. And they're afraid you can take advantage of them or make fun of them or something of that sort. And so typically, if you do confront these things, the way you can reword it is, by the way, did A, B, and C bother you? Probably not, because I understand it might not be a big deal, but I do feel like I changed from that. So I just don't want you to get the wrong idea. So maybe you used to spend a lot of money. I'm not saying you do. And that was something that they didn't like. A lot of avoidants have, triggers about that. And you can say, just in case you thought that I'm a person who spends money because I was buying this suit for my job, I just want to let you know I'm not that kind of person. I know it used to be, but I'm really not that kind of person. Or maybe you were never that way. And you can say, I just want to clarify, I'm not the type of guy or girl who goes out and spends a lot of money. I just bought this suit or this outfit or whatever it is because it's required for work. I just wanted to let you know that. You can just clarify that without facing their hurt, rejected, or misunderstood feeling. Because if you talk about that feeling, they might get triggered. If you say something like, I understand how that bothered you, they might be like, well, what are you talking about? I'm not bothered, because they're like, oh, I don't want you to see my weakness. And so that'll just make it worse typically. If you guys have a lot of rapport, you can, but typically the other way I mentioned it will be more beneficial. The next one is that they are actually waiting for you to reach out first, which is why I do recommend trying to reach out if possible. If it doesn't work, that's fine. But you trying at least gives the opportunity to at least vet this one out. And the last one is they actually feel overwhelmed by the pace or intensity of the relationship. If this is the case, give them some space and they will probably return more so on their own. And you can also open a conversation and ask them, do you feel like that we've been a little too much recently? If so, I can completely back off. I don't have an issue with that. By mentioning these things, it can really help. So let's summarize and we'll wrap it up. They've been recently triggered by you typically, and they need space. They need space to deal with personal issues. So this is not you, work-related issues. For example, they're unsure about their feelings and they're avoiding the conversation. They're upset about something that happened between you two. Usually it's reintroduced again, and so they're re-triggered by that memory. They feel hurt, rejected, or misunderstood. They want you to reach out, and they feel overwhelmed by the pace or intensity of the relationship. I hope this video is helpful to somebody. Please like, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.